I was there. June 6th, 1944. D-Day. Yeah, I landed with the 29th Infantry Division in the first wave at Omaha Beach. Our job was to clear the way of obstacles for the DD tanks so we could punch through and get everyone the out of there. Well, we landed, and we were immediately hit by mortar and machine gun fire that tore us to pieces. I can still see it in my dreams. But one thing that really stuck out to me in the early morning hours of June 6, 1944, I looked around at my brothers in arms and suddenly realized there was absolutely no trans representation. My best friend was lying there dead. His body was full of holes from an MG-42 machine gun up there on the hill. Biological male. Big surprise. 3 others from our platoon never made it out of the Higgins boat. Mortar round, boom! Again, 3 more biological males. Our captain was decapitated by another mortar round. Yeah, you guessed it, another biological male. I am so ashamed in hindsight. This was the reality of America in 1944. You mean to tell me they couldn't go out and find some trans men or trans women so as to make the largest amphibious invasion in history? You know, they didn't even try. In the trenches and on the hedgerows, you know, there was a lot of guy talk, talking about how much we miss the dames back home. And they say boys will be boys, but maybe they won't be. Maybe they'll be dames one day. I realize that now. I still wake up from the nightmares all those years later. And then I see in my waking hours the nightmare of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans taking power in 2025. And I think, we haven't got the country we had when I was raised. That isn't what I fought for. No, sir.
Actually, it is ma'am.
Man? Really? You?
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps.
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media.
Is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him as Vostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. We don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Straight ahead, he's advocating for law and order. Cully Stimson from Heritage. He's asking for climate order. Kevin Dayaratna, also from the Heritage Foundation. And they're fighting for educational freedom. Erica Donalds and Nirja Deshpande, along with sketch comedy, and Forrest Frank in the Spotlight. And now, from Times Square, where Elon Musk fired off tweets like rockets, quoted Trump like scripture, and nearly canceled his own spacecraft out of spite, here's the Kevin!
Welcome into the weekend. Glad you're with us. We've got a lot to get to on the edition today. So much, in fact, that I'll barely be able to cover it all. We've got a huge lineup for you. We're going to talk education. We've got 2 experts on that. We're going to talk about data in the climate debate, because it's not what you've been told it is. And we're going to talk about law enforcement and law and order, because that seems to be a perpetually necessary topic that we have to cover. Cully Stimson, Kevin Dayaratna, Erica Donalds, and Nirja Deshpande are all going to be with us. We've got some great sketch comedy coming up, too. We got, well, you saw Babylon Bee, but we've got Al Berry, and we've got the inimitable Nick Peterson with a very woke take on the founding of our country that may seem a little too familiar. That's all I'll say to describe it at this point in time. But we've got some great sketch comedy for you coming up on the show. And then, first time ever in the new music spotlight, the guy that just wants you to have a good day. You'd see him on Instagram sitting by the beach with the waves rolling in the background. Hey, you need a good day. And he'd sample the whole song for you. Forrest Frank is his name. He has 2 more huge hits that we're going to enjoy this weekend as well. So I'm telling you, you want to stick around for the whole time. But can I get something off my chest? I was sitting at St. Patrick's Cathedral yesterday, and I was observing the memorial of the life of my friend of Bernie Carrick, Bernard Carrick, Commissioner Carrick of the NYPD. And there was such reverence and such appreciation for what this man, who was the John Wayne of John Waynes. If you're trying to think of a guy from the modern era that had the toughness of, an impenetrable blast shield for an exterior, but had the heart of gold on the inside, Bernie Carrick's your guy. He was the modern John Wayne. And to hear all these different people, as we were talking before the service and after the service about him, it was just really touching to hear all that. But then my mind started wandering, as it is likely to do sometimes. And I'm saying to myself, how can we be paying respects to someone who fought so hard for the integrity of what America is all about in such a way that was so valiant and so strong? The word that kept being associated with him in the service was strong, how strong he was, how powerful he was. And if you ever shook his hand, you knew that. He'd crush your bones, not even trying. But at the same time, he was one of the most tender people that you could know. So there was this kind of like massive tough man exterior, and inside a guy that really cared about people. And I look at that, and then I look at the food fight that we had from Elon Musk this week, where as he's leaving the White House in his tour of duty on Doge, he gets upset because Speaker Johnson doesn't leave in the EV credits, the electric vehicle credits, in the big beautiful bill. They don't leave the all the carve-outs for solar that Elon personally is going to benefit from by leaving them in there. They don't leave in the subsidies for the EV stuff. All the stuff that seems to be very personal in terms of how it affects him. He started getting mad and blasting the big beautiful bill and calling it names and saying it doesn't really do what they say it's going to do, blah, blah, blah. And he goes after the president. He goes after President Trump. Now, there was a concern by many in the MAGA world that you were going to have at some point in time someone try to divide Elon from Donald, and that there was going to be a division there, and that they weren't going to remain united and be able to get the work done for the people. Now that he's leaving his temporary government post at Doge and going back to the private sector, I don't know if maybe this is a game. Maybe this is the way he gets, reingratiated with the other half of the country that are like really ticked at him because he stood up for what was right. I don't know. And maybe the president knows about it and he's like, okay, we'll do it. But I do know one thing. On the weekend, where we should be talking about something else as the biggest news story, the most important news story in maybe a generation, we're stuck talking about the meme verse with the brovorse and the breakup of the bromance. And it infuriates me. And it's all Elon's doing. I don't know why he did it. It's kind of inexplicable. But friends, that is not the story. Even though that's what the media wants to capitalize on and shove in our face and say, this is the biggest thing since sliced bread. It's not. You know what is? The auto pen. The auto pen. We've discovered over the last 72 hours that there was only one executive action that the Biden administration took that was signed by the actual president who was responsible to sign it. You ever notice why Joe Biden never signed his executive orders in public? Because he didn't sign them at all. You know why President Trump signs every single executive order he has in public in front of cameras? Not only does he sign it, he signs it. He has it explained. He signs it. There's a camera over his shoulder. You see the big D and the thing being written. And then he holds it up in front of the camera and goes, hey, look, this is what I just signed. And then he shows it to the camera. so that everybody can see that it's his signature that's on that executive order. We found out this week that Joe Biden, when issuing 1,200 executive actions, didn't sign any of them except the one that pardoned his family. Friends, you have to realize this is a coup. This is treason. This is betrayal. This is the worst aspects of political shenanigans in America, and we were forced to endure it for 4 years. People need to go to jail, as I argued this on townhall.com day before yesterday. Kevin McCullough, hoping you'll stay with us. We got a huge show for you. Forrest Frank is here, and we're coming back talking about law enforcement. Stay with us. Glad to have you with us. Times Square is the place. Kevin McCullough, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show, all social media, thatkevinshow@gmail.com if you want to email me. Cully Stimson is with the Heritage Foundation, law enforcement background, able to talk about prosecuting bad guys that do bad things with authority. And Cully, it's good to have you back on the show. When we're looking at the outbreak of really heinous crime on the streets of America, as we've seen as it relates to the anti-Semitism issue in particular in recent days, the couple shot in Washington, the Molotov cocktail bomber in Boulder, Colorado, we are seeing a boldness that is disturbing on a lot of levels. And, you know, we've got these guys in custody, but what in essence difference is that going to make long term, and how hard and how fast can we get these guys prosecuted and put away? Or I am all in favor of putting them to death if the case calls for it. And I feel like in those two cases, it would certainly be on the table. What's your reaction to it?
Well, Kevin, the big picture, as far as I see, is that when you go through a period of time and you send a message to the criminal element that we're not going to hold you accountable for low-level, mid-level, or high-level crimes, and that started with the Soros rogue prosecutor movement back 2016, 2017, and you have 73 elected DAs around the country of the 2,300 elected DAs around the country, but it represents 70% of the nation's population, you're sending the bat signal to the criminals that you're in charge. And so as it relates to these heinous murders, which are inspired by and copycatted by Jew haters, you know, this is just sort of the logical, nasty extension of that green light to the criminal element that you can just get away with it with impunity. And of course, the so-called Summer of Love, which was a summer of destruction and hate and murder, only put gasoline on the fire.
Right. Well, and this is why, you know, here in New York, I have to live with Alvin Bragg, and this is not a small problem. And it's also not an encouraging one to understand that when people have been walking around carrying the signs of, you know, Intifada now, globalize the Intifada, free Palestine, they may or may not be aware of what those messages are sending. But it is the equivalent of 1930s Germany. We are calling for, the people that are carrying those signs are calling for the complete obliteration of a people group.
Right.
And I have a hard time being an American accepting that is the practice in America right now. Like, it's my grandfathers went to war in World War II to stop this kind of heinous treatment of innocent people. And here we seem incapable of being able to put it down on our own streets.
Right. Yeah, my dad fought in World War II in the Navy in the Pacific with the Marines, even though he was a Navy signalman. I wore the uniform for 30 years as a naval officer. I mean, we fought back Nazi Germany and defeated evil not only the Japanese Empire in the Pacific, but Germany and their cohort, in large part because of their nihilistic destruction and attempted evisceration of the whole Jewish race. And so, when you see this, I never mention defendants' names because I just call them the accused because I'm not going to glorify what they did.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
But the shooter of the CEO of United Healthcare, essentially the execution of Sarah and Yaron in D.C., and the attempted immolation of people in Colorado. There's a connection between those three cases, and that is they're Jew haters. They're essentially Mengele or Goebbels. And of course, if you mention those names to people, the nincompoops who are getting educated in colleges today, they won't even know who Joseph Mengele is,
right,
or Goebbels. They've never read In the Garden of Beasts. They've never read real history because they're getting DEI'd to death, and they're taking gender studies and other worthless courses. And so history repeats itself when you don't learn the lessons of history. And so this anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish animus is real, it's alive, it's growing. And so you do need to hold these people accountable, but you need to hold anybody who commits a crime accountable. Now, that doesn't mean they go to jail necessarily. It doesn't mean they go to prison for sure. And, only 50% of murderers in our country see a day in prison. 95% of rapists, 95% of armed robbers, and 95% of burglars don't see a day in prison. So we don't have a mass incarceration problem in our country. We have an under-incarceration problem if you believe Tier 1 felons should go to prison, and I do. So that's why the Alvin Braggs of the world, who order their prosecutors not to prosecute misdemeanors and water down felonies to misdemeanors and don't send violent juveniles to adult court, and don't add sentencing enhancement and gun enhancements, and don't ask for life without parole, never go after the ultimate punishment. They're undercutting law and order in their cities, and they're engaged in prosecutorial nullification, not discretion. And so this tide is slowly turning, but you see these high-profile executions by these Jew haters, and you're going to get more of them unless you make an example of them by holding them accountable in a court of law.
The question I asked in my column at Town Hall this morning was, will we make the necessary adjustments in time to stave off what Tom Homan described yesterday as the next imminent 9/11? Like, you think about it from this standpoint, Cully, if someone can walk down the street and shoot a woman at point blank range while yelling "Free Palestine" in her face while she's begging for her life after he's already shot her a couple more times. Mm-hmm. And you can just wield explosive devices in a crowd of peaceful people that are walking not for the cause of Israel or to say anything even bad about Hamas. They were saying the names of the hostages that were still being held. They were a peaceful group walking to remember the hostages that are still being held. That's all they were doing. Mm-hmm. You're talking about, some of the most heinous stuff that you can imagine, and yet because and you invoke DEI, there's been all this pushback from Harvard about how the president wants to defund schools that are still wanting to push this stuff on people, and it's like we live in an upside down world, and I don't know how we get back to sanity quickly. And my concern is that we won't, and that there will be something much larger than a Molotov cocktail or a random shooting in Washington.
Tom Holman, who used to be a colleague of ours here at Heritage, is right. When the Biden-Harris administration opened the border for any person to come across, we know for a fact that numerous people on the terrorist watch list came across the border and were greeted by Customs and Border Protection, essentially Walmart greeters is the way that the Biden people treated them, and let them in the country. We don't know what we don't know, to quote my old boss, Don Rumsfeld. So we don't know how many people we don't know about have made it in because of the porous Swiss cheese borders that the Biden-Harris team did.
Stick around for more of That Kevin.
Kevin Show. Everything you need at thatkevinshow.com. My guest is Kevin Dayaratna from the Heritage Foundation, and we're talking about climate change and really a lot of the myths about what have been passed off as fact in recent years. And Kevin, early on the climate debate, because when I was a kid, I may be significantly older than you, I'm not sure, but when I was young, there was a concern that another ice age was coming. And then all of a sudden, somewhere around my high school years, people started saying, oh, global warming. And then they stopped using the term global warming because it wasn't really warming. In fact, the hockey stick showed that we were going in a different direction. And it was one of those things where the science that we were told over and over again from president after president and smart person after smart person was that the science was settled. Little did we know that there were actually scientists in Europe and in America that were saying, wait a minute, the data doesn't show to me what you're saying it shows, and I would like to be part of the discussion. And every time a scientist would raise his hand and say, can I be part of that discussion, that didn't go along with the mainline thinking, they were eventually run out of the debate altogether. So what you had was this vacuum of any type of objectivity. And that's where Al Gore makes $1 billion, putting out fake documentaries saying that his carbon credits are going to solve the world's problems. You know what I'm saying? It's like the data has not always been a part of this discussion. Is that changing in your perspective now? Are there enough objective voices being added to the mix that we're getting a robust debate of these issues?
Well, Kevin, that's a great question. That was precisely one of the purposes of this anthology, to really give a voice to these scientists that objectively look at the data. And again, I don't think anybody really doubts that the climate is changing. And this is really where the left becomes very insecure, because if anybody questions this alarmist narrative, they're immediately labeled as climate change deniers. The bottom line is the climate has been changing ever since the planet was formed over 4.5 billion years ago, and it continues to change. I think the question is the extent to which it's changing. And again, the question is, how sensitive is the planet to CO2 emissions? And the data indicates that the sensitivity is much, much, much less than these alarmists claim. And in this anthology, Dr. Roy Spencer's chapter really sheds some light on that as well.
Well, and I think of like the industrial era and other things that we were in the process of, where we really polluted the environment and did bad things that, we've learned how to clean up and operate at a much cleaner level since then. But there doesn't seem to be like a consistent understanding of even history in terms of how mankind has stewarded the environment that they've been given with. And then when it comes to, you mentioned that if Americans change their ways, but India and China are far worse polluters on the global scale than North America or even America and Europe. So where's the real damage being done? It's not with audiences that we're talking to or interacting with.
Yeah, so China continues to be the largest emitter of CO2. And for those concerned about climate change, that really is where the emissions are coming from compared to the rest of the world. And in fact, these so-called green policies that attempt to shift us towards solar power end up being, these solar panels end up being produced in China, and China keeps putting out new coal-fired power plants, keeps burning coal and pumping out CO2 into the atmosphere. So for those who consider themselves to be alarmists or seriously concerned about climate change, this green energy agenda is not helping the cause. In fact, it's only exacerbating the situation.
What has been the reaction to the anthology thus far?
It's very, very interesting. So it's been very, very well received by many people. We had a conference here at the Heritage Foundation where we had people from the Hill, people from the White House, as well as embassy members. And it was a well-received conference. It should be archived online. And yeah, it's just we are just really looking at it, the questions objectively. And
have academics taken a look at what you've put together?
Excuse me?
Have academics taken a look at what you've put together?
Well, but a number of the people in this group were academics themselves. So the answer is yes, and I've circulated the work to other academics as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that, peer-to-peer in certain arenas usually is more well received, but I would love to see
the tenor of this debate kind of be pushed into every frontier, whether it's media, the halls of Congress, the school ways of learning, et cetera. I think we need to be more aggressive with telling the truth, because those that have been on the other side have, as you said, labeled those of us that have just had questions harsh label, names. And in reality, we've like sadly turns out to be true a lot of times with conspiracy theories. The people that are asking the questions had a right to, because they were sensing that something was a little bit of a miss, and that's indeed the case.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, hoping your weekend is off and running on a great start. And we just want you to have a great time. That's why we try to mix the fun and the entertainment and other things with this particular show, because look, the week's been hard. You've been plowing through a ton of news, some of it not very good, some of it seeming to just go in cycles over and over again. And so, yeah, we do address serious issues, but we do try to have a little giggle and a little song in your heart all before we're done every weekend. One other thing that I've asked you to do over the years, and that is to help us free and liberate human beings who are actually enslaved and have been for about 15 years. A lot of people don't know this. I just looked this up. Listen to this. 50 million people are still trapped in slavery, modern slavery worldwide. 50 million. Did you know that? Do you know how many millions of people were trapped in slavery at the height of Europe and America's slave habits? It wasn't 50 million. So we have more people enslaved right now on planet Earth than ever before. And the people that we're liberating, the women in northern Sudan who were taken captive by Arab Islamists who do not think of them as people. They think of them as property. They mistreat them. I could go into at length to tell you that the abuse that these women have taken over the last 15, 20 years is just, it's obscene. It's inhumane to our fellow human beings. But what I like about what you and I do together each year is that we kind of just set all of the issues aside, and we don't see race, and we don't see color, and we don't see anything except a heart that is not free, a person that is not liberated. And then we go and liberate them. And you and I together over the last more than 10 years, I want to say at least a dozen years, we have now come very close to crossing our 5,000th slave liberated. And when you think about that, friends, over that length of time, that's 5,000 human lives that have received their freedom, their liberation, their ability to pick and choose what they want their life to be, not what somebody says it has to be. Not a slave master who beats them if they speak back to him, not a slave master's son who sneaks in and rapes them in the middle of the night, and they're not allowed to protest. It's not somebody who takes a baby away from them after they've been impregnated by one of these slave masters, and they want to raise the child, but the slave master says it's his. These are all the kinds of abuses that they've experienced in their time in captivity. And you and I and our very important partners at Christian Solidarity International, which we wouldn't be able to do any of this without them, they were the ones that basically brought the world together to end the Sudan Civil War. But when the world leaders left and the two nations were created and there was a peace, they didn't liberate the slaves. And there were about 185,000 at their peak. Now, CSI, over the last number of years, our efforts with them and with other people, the total work has been able to liberate about 150,000. But that leaves somewhere in the 35 to 40,000 range left when you consider children. And in the last 2 years, we've been able for the first time to help slaves bring their children with them in liberation. What do they get? They get a bag of hope. They get a bag of what they need, a year's worth of food. It's more than a bag. Year's worth of food, year's worth of grain to plant a following year's worth of food. They get all the utensils they need to cook, clean, fish, and sometimes even hunt with. They have things to protect them from the elements, tarps and blankets and things that will keep them warm in the cold. And then they have things like water filters and different feminine hygiene products that they may need, etc. This is all included in what's called the Bag of Hope, and when you give, you help make that happen. Take a listen to this story. It's about a woman named Ahok and what truly happened to her.
I was a child when I was abducted by the Arabs. My parents used to own livestock, and my mother would do all the cooking for us. I don't remember the year that I was captured. There had never been any problems in our village. Then one day, all of a sudden, we heard that there were Arabs attacking Dinka villages throughout the south. We were so worried we could not even sleep at night. It was a big concern to my mother and my father. We were told that these Arabs were heavily armed and would kill all the animals and people when they would attack. We were very scared. Then one morning, they attacked our village. We scattered in different directions and I ran, but I was captured. My entire village was burned down, and I've never seen a member of my family since. Then I was taken north, into slavery. My eyes saw horrific things on that trip to the north. Women were raped right in front of us. Men were beaten, and 4 men were killed because they tried to fight back. They were shot dead before our eyes. Once at the slave master's house, I was pretty much starved and worked brutal hours every single day doing difficult and very, very hard work. There was no relief. And then they raped me. My slave master did not think of me as a human. He would not even let me go to the hospital when I fell sick. And one day I heard that there was a slave retriever from CSI close by. How I wanted to be free. That retriever secured my freedom. And thank God I was able to return to South Sudan. Thank you to each of you who helped the slaves be free. But please don't stop until we get them all.
It's a reasonable request. The phone number is 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. And your gift right now of only $250 will liberate another girl like Ahok, the one you just heard the story from. The names may sound different to our Western ears, but their hearts, their desires, their lives are no different than your own daughters. Friends, if you believe that slavery is evil, and if you believe that we should be here to make a difference, then please do. Pick up the phone, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. You can also give online by just going to bringherhome.org. That's bringherhome.org or 888-342-1010. That's 888-342-1010.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Serving it up with a no-drink minimum. It's That Kevin Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, in his first big hit, he just wanted you to have a good day. But here he is to remind you that God's way is better. Forrest Frank on That Kevin Show.
When I'm overwhelmed within from the weight of all my sin, I need a friend to call my own. I need a house to call my home. When I'm broken down inside and there's nowhere else to hide, I need a place where I feel known. Can someone help me? Then I hear you reply, bringing teardrops to my eyes, saying I'm not alone. you put my heart back together? I searched the world till my head hurt just to find out your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, Lord, your ways better. Jesus, your ways better. Lord, I am so thankful for the ways that you bless me. Everything you said, making waves like a jet ski. You love every part of me, even when I was messy. Now I see the art in your beauty, so I can finally sing out. Jehovah Jireh, provider. Your way always gets me higher. Even on my darkest days, you're a lighter, my Messiah. Oh Lord, I need you now more than ever. Would you put my heart back together? I searched the world till my head hurt just to find out your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, Lord, your ways better. Jesus, Lord, I need you now more than ever. Would you put my heart back together? I searched the world till my head hurt just to find out your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, Lord, your ways better. Jesus, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. Oh, oh, your ways better. It's better, better, better. It's better, better, better. It's better, better, better. It's better than the rest.
His name is Forrest Frank, and that is the #2 song on Apple Music this minute amongst all genres, beating out only by last week's New Music Spotlight, Alex Warren, and his #1 hit, Ordinary. That's the way we play it around here at New Music Spotlight. We pick the best songs, and then we turn them #1. Kevin McCullough coming back with That Kevin Show, Hour 2 next. Stay here.
Elizabeth, the problem with the Democratic Party is we've hated men for so long we forgot how to relate to them. Well, if men weren't such dumb pigs, it wouldn't be so hard. You're absolutely right. Men are naturally racist, homophobic, and misogynist. It doesn't help that they're influenced by Joe Rogan. That's why we spent millions of dollars finding our own Joe Rogan so we can communicate with male voters again. Olivia, come in. This is Olivia Juliana. She's a plus-size queer Latina feminist. I guarantee nobody understands men better than she does. My God, she's perfect. Just by looking at her, I can tell she's at least 3 times more man than anyone else. And she can definitely speak their language? Oh yes, she understands men very well. Go ahead, Olivia. Show Elizabeth.
Hang on. Me need catch breath. Standing lots of exercise.
Wow, it's as if I'm talking to a man right now. I suppose this means we'll have to fire other representatives of masculinity. You mean Harry Sisson and David Hogg. I hate to say it, but you're right. If you weigh the options, David and Harry aren't nearly as masculine. Alright, I'll go tell them the bad news. Hi, boys.
Ooh, it's Elizabeth Warren, yeah.
Ooh, it's so good to see you, Elizabeth. There's no easy way to say this, but you two aren't the masculine authorities we thought you were.
Ooh, but I'm 95 pounds of pure man.
That's a great point, David. Unfortunately, we found 500 pounds of pure man. See for yourself.
Come here, Olivia.
Show David and Harry what you showed me.
Me need rest. Man want hot dog. Man want sit in Macy's and eat standing up.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be That Donald Show. We don't have that, so we have That Kevin Show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, they're fighting for educational freedom. Deshpande and the future First Lady of Florida, Erica Donalds. More sketch comedy from the Nick Peterson. And before we're done, Forrest Frank back in the spotlight. And now from Times Square, where Elon Musk and Donald Trump are trading insults like a pay-per-view on a large screen, rocket-fueled egos and enough testosterone to power a SpaceX launch, who wins between a flamethrower and a Truth Social account? He knows. Here's the Kevin.
For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. And in this week's episode, it's Tech Bros versus Pardon Bros and Abs of Steel. We start with Elon Musk, the only man who can simultaneously launch rockets into orbit and his own credibility into a sinkhole. Yes, this week, the tech billionaire resurrected a decade-old Trump quote on the debt ceiling because nothing says, "I'm winning an argument," like citing your enemy's MySpace posts. Musk, apparently feeling spicy, then threatened to start decommissioning Dragon, which, for the three of you still watching Game of Thrones reruns, is not a medieval threat. It's his space toy that he's now willing to blow up in a tantrum. Of course, realizing he sounded like a Bond villain with a Wi-Fi connection, he backpedaled faster than Kamala Harris trying to explain AI. "I was just joking," Musk tweeted. Oh, hilarious. America's space program is now being run like a high school breakup on Snapchat. Meanwhile, Trump responded with gentle diplomatic restraint that we've all come to expect from him, calling Musk totally lost. Somewhere in the background, Mark Zuckerberg quietly updated his Meta status to still not the weirdest billionaire in the room. But hold on, it gets better. After Elon got frisky with conspiracy theories and tossed out Epstein allegations like Mardi Gras beads, Trump's enemies became his besties. Suddenly, GOP and Democrat lawmakers, many of whom once treated Trump like your cousin at Thanksgiving who talks too loud, are now rallying behind him like he's Taylor Swift. And Elon's the angry ex writing cryptic Instagram captions. Speaking of things gone too far, the NAACP is now handing out justice awards to school board members who defy Trump's anti-DEI guidelines. Because nothing says justice like giving trophies to people for ignoring rules. Somewhere Lady Justice took off her blindfold, rolled her eyes, and booked a one-way ticket to Hungary. And remember when pardon meant mercy or compassion? Now it apparently means the one thing Joe Biden hand-signed in 4 years. Yep. Of the hundreds of pardons Biden's team pumped out in his final spree, he personally signed one. Just one. The worst one. The pardon of his family and his son. It's kind of like if Martha Stewart made 100 meals, but she only put her name on the one that gave everyone food poisoning. Meanwhile, back in the swamp, a handful of Democrats actually joined Republicans to crack down on sanctuary cities. In related news, pigs are flying all over D.C. right now. Chuck Schumer was spotted buying a MAGA hat, ironically, and CNN briefly ran a positive Trump headline before it imploded into dust. Oh, and while we're on the subject of core values, Fox News anchors decided to test their abdominal strength by doing planks on live TV. Because nothing says hard-hitting journalism like watching Bret Baier sweat on hardwood. Turns out none of them could hold a plank as long as Trump's been under indictment, which is saying something. And finally, Sean Diddy Combs is on day 18 of his courtroom thriller. No, not Civics 101, How to Be a Decent Human. It's more like Law & Order Hip-Hop Victims Edition. No word yet on whether Elon plans to tweet about that case too, but at this point, we wouldn't be surprised if he offered Diddy a ride to the moon. One way. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Members of the House of Representatives must be at least finished with their bartending career. 25 years old. What if they've been arrested, married their sibling, and support terrorist organizations? As long as they're 25 years old. Hear, hear. Let's see. Senators and representatives shall receive perhaps immunity for sleeping with Chinese spies. Compensation is where I was going with that. But yes, indubitably. Modest compensation that will inexplicably be worth hundreds of millions of dollars by the end of their term, all while boarding their private motor carriages to lecture us about the elite class. Shall I just say privilege to insider trading? No, just put compensation. And then every bill they pass must be presented to the president for signing, or auto-pin signing, but of course. However, a few small changes. Are you using graphite? No, I used ink. Just do a new page and call them amendments. And perhaps amendments. For certain, equality. First Amendment, freedom of speech. And in the case people do not care for said speech, then they shall be cancelled and their lives destroyed. I can practically smell the freedom emitting from the paper. Second, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Precisely. Unless it appears frightening, then perhaps infringed. Most of the time. Electors from each state shall vote by ballot. Need voting rights be restricted to the living? But of course not. Who doesn't love a good late night comeback story? Also permitted, miracle votes that appear in the wee hours of the morning. Shall anyone be denied the right to vote? No one shall be denied, especially based on race. And it's possible we might need a new amendment. Slavery shall no longer exist in the United States. In the United States. I think that's implied. But let's put it, we may still support it in China. My preferred kicks are made there. The blind eye we turn when it suits us. Exactly. How about sex? No, thank you, not at the moment. We're on a roll. What? No. They cannot be denied the right to vote based on sex. Oh, yes. Speaking of getting screwed, shall I add Congress's right to collect income taxes as well? Why not? Tax them on the income, tax them on what they purchase, eternal taxes on their own property. We love taxes. The more the merrier. Perhaps a little Boston tea justice for my British ancestors. And contrary to the monarchy, to ensure the limitation of power, presidents shall hold office no more than 2 terms. 3, if they covertly call the shots for a marionette. How would one so doltish even come to office? Because we dropped the voting age to 18. We could go lower. Do we want the nation's leader decided by someone who eats laundry detergent? Therefore, the voting age for citizens of the United States... Wait, must they even be citizens? If we open our borders, pander to them with the illusion that we care for them, so long as they don't come to Martha's Vineyard, and then we let them vote, we could turn this nation into a forever one-sided socialist crap hole. Hear, hear!
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin. Back to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com, That Kevin Show on all social media, and very glad to have you with us. Rejoining us is one of my new favorite experts on all things related to education. She covers it for the America First Policy Institute, and she has been tracking for us these bills that are working their way through Congress. Some of the stuff she's really wanted got into the big, beautiful bill. But where does all that stand now? Let's welcome back Erica Donalds. My hope that she's going to be the next First Lady of Florida, but we'll have to wait and see on how that goes. Hello, Erica. Good to see you.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
How much of what you wanted from the educational choice language got into the big, beautiful bill?
Well, that is the big news, is that the big, beautiful bill has school choice in it in the Education Choice for Children Act. There are a couple things that we're hoping to see as the Senate considers this bill as well. And Senator Cruz introduced a bill that could lead us to believe some of those universal choice elements. As an example, right now it's limited to low-income students. But bottom line is we want every single parent in America, whether you're in a red state or a blue state, to have the opportunity to send their child to a school that works best for them. And I think we're going to see some adjustments to what's in the House bill, including allowing corporations to take advantage of this tax credit that will provide scholarships to families for private school instead of just individuals, expanding it to allow more private schools to participate, including those that don't necessarily have the resources to serve some of the extreme special needs students. But the bottom line, we really want universal school choice access for every family in America.
This has been something that those of us in the pro-family movement have been fighting for, I think, since my parents were voting on school choice things in the state of Texas when I was a child. I'm now 55, so that tells you how long we've been seeing some of this. But what are when we talk about choice and choice options for families now, what does that kind of totally encompass, Erica? Because some people think vouchers, some people think homeschooling. There's a whole bunch of different things that come to mind. What all are we talking about here?
And that's why we're now using the term education freedom. People are very familiar with the term school choice. But in a place like Florida, Arizona, that are now the models of school choice in this country, parents receive an education scholarship account, a pot of money that can be anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000. And they can actually customize an education experience for their children. Maybe they use that money on private school tuition. Many of them do, but they can also purchase individual courses, whether those courses are online or in person in a hybrid environment, or maybe they want to allow for mastery-based learning where students are self-directed, especially older students that have a passion for a particular subject. And so education freedom means parents get the money, right? They have access to it, and they can spend it in a way that customizes the education and academic experience for their children.
But one of the things that was a real driver in the homeschool and the Christian school movements, a few decades ago, was that there was a fear that with secular schools being completely, kind of agnostic towards God's existence, that you were going to start changing worldviews of actual students. And so you were going to lose this kind of sense of morality and sense of a moral construct in society. And I'm sad to say this, but I was just speaking with Jacqueline Toberoff on last week's show, and you can relate directly a lot of the teaching that is now coming out in which these protests are occurring on college campuses, university campuses, these even the Israel issue and some of the other stuff. A lot of this is starting in elementary schools, in public schools. And in New York, we have a particular problem with this, but there are major urban areas where the infiltration of not an agnostic, we're not taking a position on God type of position is being held, but they're actually starting to dribble extremism and stuff into our public school system. And when we look at the kind of the ramifications of what that means, that's a really scary proposition, especially in light of even this weekend's attack in Boulder, Colorado. I mean, you're talking about actual impact from people if we don't sheriff what our kids are learning.
Absolutely. I did a story about the MIT commencement speaker as well, and how heinous this individual was towards the Jewish students that were there trying to celebrate their graduation. They did not come upon these radical ideas all of a sudden in college. When we are seeing these universities overrun with radical ideology and the students buying completely into it, we know that the students started getting that messaging throughout their K-12 career. Many of them did. When I was on the school board here in Southwest Florida, we rejected a textbook for the United States constitutional course that in every chapter of that textbook mentioned the United Nations position on these various topics in the United States Constitution, a globalist view of the United States Constitution, even mentioning some of the compacts within the United Nations that the United States isn't even a part of. But I imagine that this textbook is being used throughout the United States of America, providing this globalist view of our own Constitution to our high school students. And that's rampant throughout the K-12 system.
Is it your experience that, and this kind of puts us in a conundrum, because if all good people pull out of the public school system and just pursue all the other options, then you will have kind of a vacuum of anything that's decent left. But I feel like a lot of ways, the teachers unions and those that are wanting to drive these curriculum choices have grown so powerful that most parents, it's just not a fight that they're able to, to foster. So what's the real solution? How many of us strong, good people stay in the system to try to reform that as best we can versus, just immediately jetting it for the other very legitimate and probably more efficient options?
Well, the good news / bad news is that these individuals are very driven by power and money. And so education freedom and providing more options to parents is not going to make the public schools more radical. In fact, what we've seen is that they start to moderate because parents have other options and they're going to go somewhere else where their values are more aligned with those schools. And the public schools, they're not stupid. They don't want to lose those funds. And so they go out and say, oh, no, we're going to teach values now. We're going to focus on academics and not ideology. In some places, we're not going to allow boys to play in girls' athletics because parents are leaving those institutions to go somewhere where their values are respected and aligned. And so, yes, some places will be more radical, like you said, because they're controlled more by the teachers' unions. But it's not what we're seeing in competitive, free market, education freedom environments. We're seeing a moderation towards the mainstream.
Erica Donald's doing a great job. Thank you for all your updates, and please come back and see us again.
Thank you always for having me. I appreciate you.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back. Don't go away.
Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back, Kevin McCullough. Glad to have you here. That Kevin show. And we love to have fun on the weekend. It's one of the reasons why this show exists. So we can laugh a little bit at the all too seriousness that the important people take themselves with. But there's also a little bit of a pang in my heart to do something that goes beyond that as well. And that's why I've been telling you about for the last few weeks our very special efforts with Christian Solidarity International. Without doubt, my favorite international organization to work with for this one reason. We have, while the rest of the world has argued about what it is to be woke and racist and non-racist and how you know if I'm racist, if you can't judge my heart and everything, it's one thing for people to talk a big game. It's another thing for them to put their money where their mouth is. And what I love about you, my audience, and you've done this for several years, is that you've always seen way past the color barrier and said, what can I do to make the world better? And that's why we've now helped free 5,000 slaves over the last 10 years here at the Kevin McCullough Show microphone and that Kevin Show microphone. So we are once again doing it. We have a list of 208 specific slaves that we've already located in northern Sudan. We are in the process of doing everything we can to bring them home and to make their lives better, to improve their existence. Friends, if you understood what they have been through, it would tear your heart apart. You're talking about people that have been ritualistically abused since being taken captive in a war that ended 15 years ago. And in that time, while the rest of the world governments came together to stop the war, nobody thought it was important to get the slaves released that had been taken by the North. We're talking about Northern Sudan and Southern and South Sudan. South Sudan is now a wholly dedicated Christian country where these slaves grew up and where they would love to go back to. We have Arab retrievers that have penetrated the Northern Sudan area. They have found a few more of the what we think is about 35,000 that are left, and we've negotiated their release. What they need now is to have their supplies, their kits, to start their life all over again. And we're excited to be able to tell you that that's what we're going to be able to get them with the bag of hope. In it is a year's worth of food, a year's worth of grain, utensils, tools, everything they need to make their life better. And friends, when you give that gift at 888-342-1010, you're changing a life right now. In fact, let me give you an example of a life that you did change just 2 years ago.
I was a child when I was abducted by the Arabs. My parents used to own livestock, and my mother would do all the cooking for us. I don't remember the year that I was captured. There had never been any problems in our village. Then one day, all of a sudden, we heard that there were Arabs attacking Dinka villages throughout the south. We were so worried we could not even sleep at night. It was a big concern to my mother and my father. We were told that these Arabs were heavily armed and would kill all the animals and people when they would attack. We were very scared. Then one morning, they attacked our village. We scattered in different directions and I ran, but I was captured. My entire village was burned down, and I've never seen a member of my family since. Then I was taken north, into slavery. My eyes saw horrific things on that trip to the north. Women were raped right in front of us. Men were beaten, and 4 men were killed because they tried to fight back. They were shot dead before our eyes. Once at the slave master's house, I was pretty much starved and worked brutal hours every single day doing difficult and very, very hard work. There was no relief. And then they raped me. My slave master did not think of me as a human. He would not even let me go to the hospital when I fell sick. And one day I heard that there was a slave retriever from CSI close by. How I wanted to be free. That retriever secured my freedom. And thank God I was able to return to South Sudan. Thank you to each of you who helped the slaves be free. But please don't stop until we get them all.
It's a reasonable request. The phone number is 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. And your gift right now of only $250 will liberate another girl like Ahok, the one you just heard the story from. The names may sound different to our Western ears, but their hearts, their desires, their lives are no different than your own daughters. Friends, if you believe that slavery is evil, and if you believe that we should be here to make a difference, then please do. Pick up the phone, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. You can also give online by just going to Bring Her Home.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Here he is from New York. That Kevin McCullough.
Glad you're with us. Kevin McCullough, glad to be with you from Times Square. It's That Kevin Show, thatkevinshow.com for everything that you need. Nirja Deshpande is back with us. Independent Women's Forum, one of my favorite organizations. I talk to their people every week for a reason. They are involved in fighting the good fight on levels that no one else has. And to be candid, I think they've been more effective because they've kept their eye on the ball in nearly every area that they've touched.
Thank you.
Nirja, talk to me about the the Department of Education and this controversy over whether or not parents should have the option to take their kids out of unsafe schools and put them into safe schools. I can't imagine why this would have been controversial, but evidently there's some lunatics in America that think that it is. What's going on?
Well, the funny thing is, it was maybe a little bit controversial, but I think more than controversial, it was just ignored. So for like over 20 years at this point, there has been an unsafe school choice option, right, from the federal government saying, if your child is in a school that is unsafe, in the public school that is unsafe, your child has a right to attend a safe public school, right? And so that provision has been there, but only 8 states and Puerto Rico, I believe, have ever actually identified any schools as unsafe. So it's just been a completely ignored provision for years and years and years until
so it's
the Trump
federal
admin.
provision that state authorities have to classify schools in certain ways in order for people to qualify. There's your answer to it. That's because you don't have anybody in public education in Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, New York City. You don't have anybody in the public education arena there in the higher ups that are interested in labeling and classifying for any purposes, because it would be an indictment on their own jobs.
Exactly. And then also the state is concerned because then they have to, actually show, oh, well, these places are unsafe and we need to fix them. But now the Trump admin is actually saying, hey, this has been here for like over 20 years and we've had barely anyone take advantage of this. Like, this needs to change because we know there are unsafe schools. And especially, after COVID, seeing the deterioration of student behavior, seeing violence growing in schools, seeing just chaos take over. It's completely, it's completely ridiculous that despite federal law, the vast majority of states have literally just ignored the existence of this option and not really given kids in failing violent schools the option to leave. And so it's great that the Department of Education is actually enforcing this finally. Yeah.
Well, I hope that that families will be helped. But again, you have to get public educators to get on board. And I kind of draw a distinction between the school teachers in the trenches and the leadership. The leadership isn't worth the bags of grain that that the store has. But the teachers work really hard and they're trying their best. And so we've got to come up with some alternatives to re-incentivize public education to do better, because I think it can. It's just not structured right now in any way that anybody's really incentivized to do it.
Exactly. And I'll plug a report I just recently wrote called Give Teachers a Break. It's on the Independent Women's website, IWF.org. And that report is basically making this exact point, right? That there are federal, state, and local policies, talk about San Francisco, right? Forcing teachers not to give out real grades anymore. There are those sorts of policies that are really getting in the way of teachers being able to do their jobs. And, teachers are often not lunatic progressive activists. Some of them are, and that's, worth mentioning. But there's a lot of
really good ones, and I know a bunch of them, and like they hear me rail on education. They're like, Kev, remember, some of us aren't with the crazies. No, I get it. In fact, there's more of you that aren't than are. But the problem is that your unions and other things have not protected you. Real quickly, let me transition to another educational story that seems to have a new chapter of it unveiled every day. Whether it's their medical school morgue manager selling body parts on the black market, or the teachers of legal ethics that are having to lose their tenure and be fired because they manipulated data on studies that were designed to look at dishonesty. And then just before we went on air, I saw another headline of another story today that I haven't had a chance to delve into. But Harvard University, it used to be the dream of every American family. Oh, if my son could just get into Harvard. And I grew up in a place way far from the East Coast, and people talked about it. Oh, is your kid going to get into Harvard? Would they want to go to Harvard? It was always the pinnacle of American education. It was kind of the premier, like if you could climb that mountaintop, you would be set for life. And I wouldn't send my kid to that institution right now under any circumstances. I don't care if they gave him a free ride. It is that bad. And it doesn't appear that they want to learn their lesson. Instead of saying, oh, we'll reform and we'll change, they're now suing us, we the people. They've filed a lawsuit against the country to demand that we give them billions of dollars when they can raise billions of dollars. What's going on?
Yeah, and I mean, I will say you grew up far from there. I grew up in Boston, right? I grew up in Somerville, Massachusetts, right next to where Harvard is. I know so many people affiliated with it, faculty, staff, students, former students. And what I will say is that, the smartest, there are a lot of, I think on the one hand, like, and looking at this entire academic conversation, I know so many academics, right? I know so many, I'm from like very liberal,
right.
a very liberal coastal background, despite my own political opinions. And so, I talk with these academics, and a lot of them are also realizing, yeah, this is kind of messed up, right? This is, so I think that's one thing I've noticed among smart academics is that like the really good ones are like, oh yeah, this is, this was going to come to an end. This was really unsustainable. And what was happening at places like Harvard was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's like, part of the problem is these universities for years and years have shown contempt for normal Americans and their values, right? And have tried to force on us. I mean, if you think about COVID school closures or mask mandates, or I mean, these are two major things, right? And I think about how those were really coming from the universities in a lot of ways, right? The pressure was coming from university public health departments, from university medical schools, from these sorts of places. So, why do they think that they can have no accountability? And in this particular case, what they have to do is just comply with the federal government. You want our tax money? You can comply, right? Or
just like every other school has to.
You can reject
and if
it
you
like
break the rules, we're not required to give it to you. But now you want to drag us into court, make us spend a lot of money to just defend our own, right to not serve you because you didn't meet the standards. And Nirja Deshpande, thank you for your work at the Independent Women's Forum. Go to iwf.org to see her article. And Nirja, we'll have you back soon.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square.
Ready or not, we'll be right back. That Kevin.
Welcome back to That Kevin Show, rounding out today's weekend edition. It is Forrest Frank back in the spotlight and beautiful as ever.
Beautiful as ever. No one compares when it comes to you. A basket full of pearls, just like the sun. It's all a gift to you. And I cannot wait till the day that you come back to my life. No matter the distance, only you. Looking into your eyes as a tear starts to fall down mine. I could see forever as my heart starts to come alive. The sun and moon are dim compared to how you shine. I would walk 1,000,000 miles to make you mine. But take my hand, we'll be fine. Let's walk across space and time. Lay down in the sunshine and count the clouds passing by. On and on we'll be together. You're a bird and I'm a feather, waiting for the wind to take us home again. You're beautiful as ever. No one compares when it comes to you. A basket full of petals, just like this song is all I give to you. I cannot wait till the day that you come back to my arms. No matter the distance, never leave. Hey, oh, you so beautiful, my buttercup, my better half. No one got our chemistry, had chem in grade 11 class. Past every struggle at your side and now we traveling. If you jump into me, I'll catch you like a trampoline. If I pass away, I suffocated from cuddles. It's a different color world when I'm inside of your bubble. And this won't ever change, I can't get bored of your kisses. Won't forget the sound of harmonies when doing the dishes. Bought her a dog with a collar. She got her nails always polished. She want a break, then I'll drop it. She want a friend, then I'm on it. Movie watching with popcorn butter topping. I'll do anything for you. Always love your company, my dear. Bringing out the sun for me, all clear. I'm so stuck on your love forever and always say you're beautiful as ever. No one compares to you. A basket full of petals.